Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Theravada Buddhism series, Dhamma talk number 10. The topic is particulars, Pakinnaka. Mental factors in Pali Cetasika. They depend on the consciousness to arise. They pass away together with the consciousness to the same object, and they arise from the same base. And this mental factor is the one that gives characters to the consciousness. Without these, consciousness has no character. There are altogether 52 mental factors. And are divided into 6 groups. The first group is called common to another, Anya Samanya in Pali. What it means is these mental factors are actually neutral. They are neither good nor bad. They are neither good, wholesome, or unwholesome. But they are adaptable to a wholesome condition or unwholesome condition. When they are in the wholesome condition, they become wholesome particulars. When they are in the unwholesome condition, they become unwholesome mental factors. Altogether, there are 13 of them. Again, let's say, as an example, a person, when that person hangs around in the environment of gangs, the person become a gang member. The same person, if he hangs around among the monks, he became a monk. Without those environments, he's just simply neutral, neither a gang member or a monk. That is Anya Samanya, common to another. As we say, this first group has 13 mental factors. And this first group is divided into 2 subgroups. The first group is called universal, common to all. We have discussed about it previously. This first group consists of 7 mental factors, and they are associated or arise together with all 121 consciousness. That's the first group. The second subgroup is called particulars, Pakinnaka in Pali. This is the subject of today's talk. It consists of 7 mental factors which arises in common to some of the 121 consciousness. They don't arise with all of them, but only with some of them. That's why they are called particulars. They are quite particular about with what consciousness they arise with. So these 6 particulars are initial application, sustained application, decision, effort, pleasurable interest, and wishing or wanting. You know the Pali word, chanda. Wishing, wanting, chanda. So the first one in Pali is called vitakka. Vitakka. Initial application. Translated into English as initial application. As always, most of the words or phrases are given 2 different presentations in Buddha's teaching. In the sutta, which is most common to everybody, lay person, to the larger mass, one version. And another one is Abhidhamma, that has a different version. They are the same, but presented in totally different way, different styles. So this vitakka, initial application, in the sutta it implies thoughts or ideas or notions with that kind of a meaning. It is presented in the sutta. But in Abhidhamma, it's very specific. The meaning is very specific. Vitakka, V-I-T-A-K-K-A, vitakka. Vitakka is an application of the associated mental factors to the object. Whenever a mental factor arises, they never arise singularly. They arise as a group. And each one of them has their own job, responsibility, things to do, or function. And each one do their job in conjunction with the other, all together at the same time, but they do their own function. Let's say different departments working together towards the same goal. So vitakka is it applies other mental factors to the object. That is its job. That is how one can recognize vitakka. The function of this vitakka, the job of this vitakka is to strike or to hit the object. The first one is the characteristic. To strike or to hit the object is his function. And it manifests as the leading of the mind to the object. Mind means consciousness and mental factors. This vitakka leads this consciousness as mental factor to the object. And of course, the proximate cause is the object itself. In the scripture, it's written as this Vitaka associated with 55 kinds of consciousness, not 121, only with 55. There are 3 types of Vitaka. Okay? Once I give a full English meaning, in this case is initial application, Vitaka. I will repeat with the Pali word so that you become used to it, because translations are never fully cover the true meaning of the word. 3 types of Vitaka. The first one is ordinary, everyday Vitaka. Whatever you are doing, seeing normally in your daily life, you are applying that Vitaka, so we call it ordinary. And the second one is the developed Vitaka. What it means is you purposely make yourself become an expert in this Vitaka. You practice it again and again, consciously, mindfully, purposefully. You direct the mind. You apply the mind towards the object. In meditation, you're always putting it on the object, making sure the mind is always on the breath. This Vitaka is the one that is applying the mind to the breath. That is the developed Vitaka. And when it is developed, it becomes a jhanic factor. There are 5 factors of absorption, jhanic factor. At that time, they call it jhanic factor. And the third one is called supramundane Vitaka. Supramundane means Lokottara. Supramundane Vitaka. What it is Samasankappa, right thought. It is one of the Eightfold Noble Path. Samasankappa, right thought. So, depending on where it is, what way it is developed or trained, they take a different role, but they are all Vitaka. So this is the first of the 6 particulars. Second one is called Visara, Vicara, sustained application. Visara is an application of continuous pressure onto the associated mental factor. To repeatedly rub or engage with the object, to examine it. So in here, not Vitaka can be just one time, and to be Visara, it has to be many times of this Vitaka. One after the other, applying onto the object. So it is more like giving pressure to sustain the awareness on the object. For what? To examine it, to understand it, to get a face-to-face understanding, not a second-hand understanding. That's what vitakka is. Visara is. Its function is to sustain the repeated application of the mind onto the object. That's its function, its job, to sustain it, not to drop out. It manifests as striking the mind to the object. And also it is one of the 5 factors of jhana. Vitakka, visara, the first jhanic factor, second jhanic factor. In the scripture it's given the example like a bee. Bee is flying around, of course, looking for food. And then when the bee saw the flower, it dived towards the flower. That diving towards the flower is initial application, vitakka. And then when it got very close, it hovers on and around the flower. That is visara, just staying there, didn't leave, hovering around. That's the example for initial application and sustained application. Bee and a flower, diving and hovering. The third one is decision. In Pali it's called adhimokha. Adhimokha, decision. Translated as decision. Adhimokha means releasing the mind onto the object. Releasing the mind onto the object. Just like the bee was hovering, and then finally the bee is quite sure, this is the flower, this is the food, this is what I like. It just sit on it and suck the juices. Because the bee had made the decision. Once the decision is made, it's locked in. So, adhimokha is decision. Or different way of expressing is making up the mind or choosing. And once you do that, the mind is unwavering. This adhimokha has the quality of unwavering, without doubt. The bee is very sure this is the food I like, the best kind. There's no doubt, no vichikiccha. Once a decision is made, one does not change. Locked in. That is the third particular. The fourth one is called viriya. You all have heard that word so many times. It's translated as effort or energy or exertion. Actually, it is the state of a very energetic person. State of a very energetic person. And it is the mental effort that it is referring to, not physical effort. It is the mental effort. It has the characteristics of exerting supporting, upholding, and sustaining the other mental factors that are associated with it. Its function is to support, to uphold the associated mental factors so that they can keep on doing their job. He's giving a more like a cheerleader. Go ahead, do, something like that. It's support, upholds. That's its function. It manifests as non-collapsing. If there's an effort, whatever you do, you don't fold it, you don't surrender it. It doesn't collapse down. That's its manifestation. And the proximate cause is a sense of urgency. Whenever you feel this has to be urgently done, this is very important, this Uriya effort just jumped up to the front of the line of all other mental factors. In meditation, it helps its associated mental factors to stay with the object of meditation. Not to just take a detour or wandering or shifting or drifting. If one has viriya, effort and energy, the mind stays with the meditation object. But once the energy wanes or becomes slack or low, one drops out of meditation. It is one of the 5 controlling mental factors, Pincha Indriya. That is the basic 5 factors that we are developing again and again for our mindfulness insight meditation. Pincha Indriya. And then when these 5 controlling mental factors become very strong, it's just called Bala Indriya. Strong, powerful, controlling factors. 2 different groups. One is a little ordinary class, the other one is the upper class, a higher class. Pincha Indriya and Bala Indriya. It is also one of the 4 predominants. We talked about it a few Dharma talks ago. Adipati, predominance. It's one of the 4. And in this predominance, it can overcome difficulties. It takes charge. And also, it is one of the 4 means of accomplishment. In Pali, Itipada. You can accomplish it, anything you set your mind on it. If the effort is super powerful. And it is also one of the 7 factors of enlightenment, Bojjhanga. And finally, it is one of the 8 full one of the Eightfold Path. It's a noble truth. Ordinary effort in all different types and kinds is participated, and it can even uplift to the point of the noble truth, understanding, experiencing of the noble truth. It is a very, very important mental factors for, especially for practicing yogis, but it's also useful for everyday life matters, tasks, projects as well. And the particular number 5, particulars, Pakinnaka. The 5th one is piti. English translation, pleasurable interest, joy, rapture, zest. Many words, but my teacher told me that pleasurable interest is the closest to what it means for piti, even though it doesn't cover completely. It is one of the 5 factors of jhana, piti. Okay, the first one is vitakka, jhanic factor, initial application. Second one is visara, sustained application. And the third one is, once you sustain it for some time, piti, this rapture or pleasurable interest arises. The third factor of jhana. But one need to be very careful in understanding this piti, even the pleasurable interest and joy and zest and so on. It is not a feeling. It is not vedana. It is not feeling. It is not vedana. It is not the experience of the object at all. You are not experiencing the object. But it is the expectation of a pleasurable object. Piti arises from the expectation, not from direct experience. It is explained or in the scriptures is as a weary traveler traveling across the desert, sunny, very hot, tired, thirsty, and suddenly he saw an oasis about a mile or two from where he stands. Suddenly saw it from the little tip of the palm tree, palm leaves. At that moment, suddenly a rush of excitement experienced. Energies come up, totally refreshed. He wasn't at the oasis, yes, he just saw it. It's an expectation what he could get at the oasis. And all those things, excitements and thrills and joys, at that moment, at that place, at that time is piti. Interest in the pleasurable possibility of the pleasurable experience of the object. That is why it is translated, the most suitable word is pleasurable interest. Characteristics is enduring the associated mental factors. It endears the associated mental factors. Function is to refresh all these mental factors. They might be a little withered, a little dull or drowned. It refreshed it so that they are functioning full force again. To pervade with joy and rapture to the mind and the body. Both you can feel it in the mind as well as in the body. It pervades. So there are 5 kinds of piti based on the intensity and the type, I guess. The first one is simply a little flesh crawling. It's easier to describe with the physical. A little twitch here, a little touch there, a little tick here, tick there. In the body, you are meditating, quiet. Suddenly those little things happen. It is not like a joy or rupture or things like that. But that is not unpleasant. That is that little tick or that little twist in the flesh or on the skin is interesting. Interesting. That's the first and the basic one. The second one is, in Pali is called Pakinnaka, momentary. A little bit of a little series of vibration run through your arms or shoulders or face. Psst. Just like that, like a little, the duration of a lightning strike. And it actually runs through like lightning from point A to point B and then gone. That is a second level of piti. And the third one is called wave-like. It comes onto your body like one wave after another, like feeling of joy or rapture. One wave come in, just like the waves in the ocean. Disappear, another wave come in, another wave come in. That's the fourth one. And the fifth one is called ubega. Ubega is you're meditating and suddenly you feel your body feel very light. Very light. There's no pressure. There's no stress in any part of the body. It seems like against gravity. It seems like floating. Actually, you felt like you are floating. You may or may not. And there are some cases, actually, it floats and moves in the scripture. And that is called Paranapiti. Like it soaks every cell of your body with that joy and rapture and lightness, anti-gravity feeling. Those are the 5 kinds of piti, pleasurable interest. And the 6th and the final one is chanda, wishing or wanting. Some translate this as desire, but as soon as the word desire is used, people might tend to think there's a greed or lust is involved. Actually, it is a mere wishing or a mere wanting to do or to act. It is neither wholesome or unwholesome in that it only becomes wholesome chanda when it associates with the wholesome condition. It becomes unwholesome chanda or unwholesome wish if it associated with the unwholesome condition. That's why chanda is, the translated word is called ethically variable. It is adaptable to any condition, good or bad. Its characteristic is wishing or wanting to do. Its function is looking for an object. When you want something, you look for an object. That's its function, looking for an object. It manifests as a need for an object. When you feel like you need something, that is the manifestation of chanda. The proximate cause is the object itself. But when you want to make this chanda very specific, good or bad, they use the word kama chanda. It's one of the 5 hindrances, kama chanda nivarana. Hindrance of sense desire. Kama chanda, then it's become unwholesome from the Buddhist point of view. Desire for sense pleasure. And the other end of the spectrum is dhamma chanda. Desire for wholesome things. Wholesome desire, dhamma chanda. If you don't put the prefix of kama and dhamma, it is simply chanda, neutral. Those are the 6 particulars. And we have already talked about 7 universal mental factors. 6 plus 7, 13. 13 are put together and put it under the common to another, anya samanya, division or group. Because all of them, they are neutral by themselves and they can become wholesome or unwholesome based on their associates. By understanding these mental factors, it will help you to understand the Buddha Dhamma more precisely and correctly and apply in your meditation with a clear understanding of your own experience. May all of you be able to practice mindfulness insight meditation seriously and habitually, and may you attain Nibbana as soon as possible. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you very much.